Welcome to the third episode of the Confession podcast. Here we talk to environmental activists about their opinions, experiences, and ideas for preserving nature, the biggest gift we cherish, or at least we should cherish, through generations and generations. Our guest today is Rea Nepravishta, speaking with me from Tirana, Albania, who works at the World Wildlife Fund Adria for Fresh Water Program in Albania. Rea, thank you for being our guest in the Confessions podcast and welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so speaking of the broader context of Albania, let's begin with water pollution and over-dependency on water resources to cover energy, which seems to be one of the major issues. Please tell me, what is the current state on building mini hydropower plants, something that activists from the whole region are currently trying to tackle in order to preserve nature?
Thank you for this question. It's very important because it's kind of a paradox in Albania that we are the second country in Europe for water resources per capita, so for number of population. It means that we have a lot of water resources, but on the other hand, due to bad management, we are facing a lot of problems with hydro energy, and with the fact that on the other hand we don't have water in our taps, especially in Tirana, 24 hours. So we need to deposit water and in order to have it in our homes. The problem of small hydropower in Albania is long, 30 years. The problem behind it is the fact that in Albania, when we think about how we produce energy, the main priority and focus has not been the energy or the environment, neither of them. So they are not actually in conflict between each other. But the main problem has been the profit, the money that private interests get out of these small hydropowers. Why am I saying this? I am saying this because actually we have been building small hydropowers that produce very small amount of energy. And on the other side, this energy does not, this energy that we take from these small hydropowers does not justify the big damages that they do to environment and to the communities around the rivers, including a lot of factors like social, psychological, the impact on biodiversity, on agriculture, on tourism, on well-being of people, meaning that we continue build something that brings more damage than benefit for all. So why we are doing this? We are doing this because, of course, private businesses gain money out of it. Instead of building a lot of small hydropowers and destroying a lot of rivers around the country, we could have built only one big hydropower, for example, have a lot of energy out of it, and not destroy many water resources around the country. So this is why actually we as activists have understood the core of the problem, and we are trying to fight it and to say this is a wrong strategy, this is the wrong way to think our way of being in this country, and this should change.
Have things changed in the last years? Because we know, when the concept of renewable energy became something that countries started to address, hydropower plants looked like a good solution. Then through time, mini hydropower plants started to emerge everywhere where you have just like small rivers or any kind of water, of natural water. They started to be, in a way, misused and create damage. And in the last year, activists in the whole region have started to let's say, really actively address this issue. We've had protests just a couple of days ago here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We know what's happening in Serbia as well. Are things changing in Albania?
Yes, in Albania we have had a lot of protests actually against hydropower. And they are and campaigns, and people have found their ways to make their voices heard in many ways in the last years. I could even dare to say that in a way the environmental struggles have actually boosted the civil society movements in Albania in general, if we think, for example, the protests against the chemical weapons coming from Syria back in 2013, that was a huge protest which actually had a sign, let's say, in the whole civic movements in Albania at country level. So yes, it's happening. It's the particularity of the rivers actually is the fact that when we talk about rivers, they are in the remote areas, they are in national parks, in the middle of the nature, in the middle when everything is still intact. So it is not like other environmental issues that are happening in urban areas, for example, in cities, but it is something that is different. It's like another kind of setting. People that are living next to nature, next to rivers, next to forests, and they are living in contact and living out of what nature is giving to them. So they, in a way, are out of the logics of economical logics of the capitalistic system, in a way. So what they are teaching to us as activists is a way of being that is different from what we in the urban areas are used to. And they are kind. I try to imagine it like a call from the past, from a way of life where you are in close contact with water, with earth, with the nature, and in a way you cohabitate with it and you don't extract or you don't exploit it. So that's why I think out of all environmental problems we have, that we have many as a lot of countries, I think the river, the question of the river is very particular, very special, because we really hear communities and activists that are showing us a way of being that is radically different from the way of living that we are building in the future. And it is this development, this savage development that we are going towards, while they are calling us towards something that is I think respects environment, respects nature, and just makes me think about this idea that even when we say respect nature, in a way we are a bit arrogant, because it's not that we have to respect nature and consider it like something separate from us. We are nature. It's not that we have to consider nature and as a separate entity from ourselves, We are nature. So this is some mindset that we have lost after progress and industrialization, but we should really have so much to learn from people living in those small remote communities that are defending rivers. I don't know if I replied to your question, but just wanted to give you a taste of
yes,
what river defense causes mean for me and here.
Yes, that was such a good point, that perceiving us as something on the opposite side of the nature, or, just being divided from the nature, is such a wrong starting point. Before moving on to your specific activistic experience, I just want to ask you another question regarding another significant environmental issue in Albania, and that is air pollution, especially in the capital, Tirana. Now, is the government or anybody else doing anything to address this issue?
Yeah, it's a problem in Tirana, and there have been also some studies that say that it directly causes diseases, and it's the cause for, especially when it comes to lungs. Air pollution is really bad. In Tirana we have a lot of pollution coming from cars and from traffic. Also, Tirana is developing very fast, and you have a lot of, I would say, savage construction. It's changing, and every green space that has remained is now a potential place to build a building higher and higher possible, where at some point I think we are going to end up living like rats, in small boxes. So yeah, it's a problem, air pollution. Actually, we have a big park here in Tirana that was also expanded in the last years, which is a positive thing. But on the other hand, all other green spaces of Tirana are being, as I told, shrinked, and I think in 10 years' time, I cannot imagine we will be a grey city, and with maybe only this small spot remaining green. I have to say that local and central government, what they do when it comes to air pollution is they plant some trees to go in television and to be like the good guys during the electoral campaign, because people like when you plant a tree, you are good. But on the other hand, speaking about a green city, it's not planting some trees with the cameras in front of you. It is about an urban planning that is not prioritizing only construction. And unfortunately, Tirana today is like that. Is only focused on building and not on living green areas, and this is really, I mean, it's not a very optimistic overview.
Yeah, that definitely is not the whole solution, and that's something that's common, obviously, for all of the countries of the region. Plant a tree, fake a smile, and speak of a green city, which basically does not change anything. Now, what is your activistic experience in addressing these issues? What ways are they to address the issues, which are more and which are less efficient? And are environmental activists desirable in the society, or are they not even being listened to?
Okay, let's say I will just give you two overviews. One that is more long-term, and the other one more specific. First, it's true that in the last years, the environmental activism in Albania has been growing, expanding, and I think this is very positive, because up to some years ago, you didn't have all this activization from people, from communities, from activists, to make their voices heard and to say, no, I don't accept the situation, I am against it, Also because we have a mentality of not opposing the authority that is deeply rooted in ourselves. I think also in other Balkan countries we are quite similar. Also because of not only, but also because of our past during the dictatorship regime. So I think it's positive. I have to admit this, because I mean it's important also to admit positive developments, and we are more and more activating and more trying to make our voices heard, and to stand in front and say, no, this is not okay. this, I think this is the positive side. On the other hand, what I see as problematic when it comes to activism is that the power, especially the power that comes down from the government, is always trying to manipulate, and is trying to how can I say, englobate to the voices and the spaces that are free and that are trying to resist, let's say. So there is, on one side, there are spaces of resistance, and there is the power that tries to englobate and to take and to orientate, let's say, these spaces. On the other hand, there have been, for example, in the case of Valbona Valley National Park, back in 2019, the American Bar Association Center for Human Rights, they did a research on activism and harassment against activists up in Valbona National Park in northern Albania. And we saw that activists that were you can imagine it is a very small community, so it's also the setting of the community is very difficult. And in this small community there had been pressures, there had been threatenings to lose their jobs, or even dividing the community, or trying to use gossip and to put people against each other. You know, all these kind of small tactics and strategies that powerful businesses use to divide and to silence the activists. These are all hidden ways to make it happen, but unfortunately we are facing this every day. I'm sure I gave you the example of Valbona, which I know quite well because I was volunteering as an activist in those years for this cause. But if you ask other activists, I'm sure they will tell you more or less the same. So at some point it's like, yeah, it becomes it's not that easy, and it becomes hard to keep fighting. And then, okay, of course you have all this apathic context around you, and you ask yourselves from time to time, like, why am I doing this? Why do I continue doing this if nothing is changing, or if I see around me indifference and lack of interest? So yeah, it's a struggle.
Exactly. I mean, that's basically, I think, what, you know, when analyzing the history and all the big social, political changes which happened, it was always a very consistent minority who began with the struggle. And I think that's basically the consistency and the strength, which often you do not have a place to search for, but is something that must keep going, all of the activists fighting for the environment. Now, tell me please, Rea, who are the activists in Albania fighting for environment? Leaning to this previous question and your answer, I want to know, are they mainly women, and of what age? And what do they, you mentioned some of the problems they've had in a specific area, but do they have problems with the law enforcement agencies in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's in Tirana and in big cities, it's especially there are young people, girls, boys, women, men, so it's quite mixed. In small communities and remote areas, when it comes to, for example, river protection that we were mentioning, it's more men, and because there is the mentality that men are focused, and men are dealing with the public sphere, while women are dealing with the domestic sphere. So because of this, it is always men that come out and fight for the river and for water resources. Of course, there are exceptions, but let's say that in general it's like that. Although in the background, women are suffering the way that water resources are being deployed in here, exploited, of course. Also because when it comes to the domestic sphere, women are directly connected to that. Regarding age, something very, let's say, very specific in here is that in remote areas, there are old people have remained and are still living in there, while young people have migrated, maybe in bigger cities or even abroad. So often what we see, I'm thinking for example of Valbona or of Zaljočaj National Park, of Thira in Mirdita, on Kelmendi, I mean many places. It is often old people, men and women, that are going out and fighting for their environment, 60, 70, 80 years old, you know. And this because young people are not there anymore, and so you see old people talking to you really from their hearts, and showing also some, as I was telling before, showing a kind of mentality that now is being lost, you know, and telling and showing to us how connected they are with nature, how much they depend on nature, and how much they love their environment where they live. And this is really touching, because I think when you see it, you see also the wisdom of them, the wisdom of old people staying in those areas and being so connected to nature and the environment. So that's something also I think that is going to change very soon, but it's something that it's really touching when you hear and old people trying to fight for what they have in there. Yeah, it's true. I think it's mostly men, but yeah, women are. I think women are there. And probably it's time for us to find ways also for women to give their perspective about this about nature protection.
That is exactly what I would like us to conclude this podcast with, like. Given your background and all of the things that you do, I would like to hear, and given, of course, what you just said as a part of your answer, men being like perceived as in front of what's happening, being publicly exposed, unlike women. Now, what is the link between feminism and environmental activism? Because, you know, at first it seems distant, but it necessarily isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for this question. I am also very affectionated, connected with the feminism, and I think that they are deeply connected, the two issues. This is because I think like at global level, not only in Albania but in the whole world, we have imagined, we have built a world that is built on patriarchal values. This means, when I say patriarchal values, means that we exploit, we extract, and we see nature as something to benefit benefit from, and not as something to protect. So we by running towards construction, energy, progress, and we are showing our arrogance, and we are showing our superiority towards the nature that actually is the one that has that keeps us in the planet. So I think this is a view of the world that comes from a patriarchal way of being in the world. And if we think about the way that women, and this is also how the gender roles have worked, if we think about the way women are approaching life, existence, and are approaching the world, it is different, because women always bring life, they protect life, they nourish, they nurture life, and so they are not oriented towards taking and exploiting resources. So by living in patriarchal societies, as we know that we do, this is also bringing our way of being into the world and into the environment, and that's why the environment is suffering so much. So that's why when I say we have to stop exploiting what we have around and on the other side protect it, it's what often women do with life and with the existence and with the planet. So that's why I think I think they are connected, and I think we should just stop and see that there are different ways of being in the world, and that women have a lot to teach about on this. And yeah, this is something that it's absolutely inspiring, I think, and it's inspiring. And I think if every one of us starts shifting this paradigm of imagining the world as a place where you live in harmony and not a place that you exploit, I think after some generations, because that's the way is too long, we could probably also switch the way we treat environment, and be more like be more matriarchal like or women like rather than patriarchal. You know, we have been patriarchal for too long, and now we see what are the consequences also on the planet. So yeah, this is more or less why I see the both things connected, and this is why I love seeing more and more women included in environmental causes, and but not also as an activist, but also when you think about small things of everyday life. If we care about ourselves, it is like a political act. It's not only an act of caring, but it becomes also political in the sense of how we want to stay in the world and what is the message we give to others. So yeah, this is what I think.
Thank you. I think that was, as you've said, absolutely inspiring, but also makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Rea, for being our guest.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for inviting me.
So Rea Nepravishta from Tirana was our guest in the podcast Confessions. As we've heard, there are a lot of reasons to think of environmental activism in terms of feminism and to acknowledge the women who are a part and who are as well leading these fights. My guest today is such a woman, and until the next episode, take care of the nature which takes care of you.